Hey guys, how's it going? I'm gonna be talking about something a bit different. Well, not really too different, but it's something that I think not a lot of people really talk about, and that's retro game development. And what I mean by that, I mean like getting, developing games for consoles that are way out of date. Something like the Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, Genesis, Nintendo 64, which I don't think the Nintendo 64 has much of a development or like people developing games for them. There's not really much of a homebrew scene for that. I believe it has to do more of the technical limitations by the fact Nintendo kind of has a lot of their tools to themselves, and Sega's kind of been a bit more loosey-goosey with that. People have kind of leaked documents out that are confidential to Sega, but that's the old Sega. That Sega doesn't exist anymore. So I guess it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's on the internet. They're not doing anything about it. I guess they don't give a shit. The Dreamcast has a huge homebrew community, so that's always good. And there's still games coming out to this day, usually being made by small indie teams or something. But yeah, it's just one thing I wanted to talk about because I just felt like it's just something I'm passionate about. I really love retro gaming, mostly Sega. I don't know why, I just became a Sega fanboy recently, really. I think I'll start when I got the Dreamcast and how much I actually really thought that was actually a very amazing console with everything it had, and just how much I think a lot of the peripherals it has, and just the controller and how unique it was compared to everything. The console itself is pretty unique too. Someone once said that it is probably the last true arcade console. And I guess what they mean by that is like hardware wise, it's practically like an arcade machine. You can play 3D arcade games. It looks like if you play something, the rendering isn't like anything special like the PS2 where they can do some crazy effects. Like if you look at Shadow of Colossus, that shit shouldn't even been possible on the PS2. They had to do some kind of magic for that. Since the PS2 doesn't actually have shaders, it doesn't support shader. And at the time, that was just amazing. And I'm not going to really talk much about PS2 development. I don't really consider that super retro, but it is kind of now retro. I mean, it's been like, 2 generations now? Now we're at PS4, PS3, PS2. PS1's also actually another console I really like a lot, too, but I don't really have one. I have a broken PS2, rest in peace, and my PS3, which I play my PS1 games on when I feel like playing them. But yeah, now development on these consoles has always been kind of something that nobody, like the public, has never really truly been able to do until probably after the cycle of them, for the console's lifetime. And it's always been usually either someone makes like a development kit for them, or they leak the development tools from studios. I guess people who work at studios usually just put it out to the public, because at this point, who cares? Sony isn't going to do anything about it. Their console's dead. They're not supporting it anymore. So, or some people just make their own tools and probably update it and make it easier for people to actually develop. So, what I have an issue with is the lack of I don't want to say resources. I keep saying lack of resources whenever I ever think to myself about this. It's not that there's a lack of resources. By far, right now, I've finally managed to set up a Sega Genesis development kit on CodeBlocks. So I had to program in C, which I never really do a lot of C programming. I kind of want to get into it a bit more, but I've been busy with GameMaker's language, since we're pretty much going to be making games on GameMaker forever, until we actually get enough money, feel comfortable, and actually make our own engine eventually. Probably actually have a slightly bigger team than just us three, me being the programmer. But anyway, yeah, I set that up, and I was actually able to make the text "Hello World" appear on a Genesis emulator, but it's a legitimate Genesis ROM, I guess. Not really a game. I wanted to say a game, but it's just a ROM. It's just a small program. Then I made it bounce around, and it was kind of neat. I was impressed. I was happy. Now, my problem was I was following this guy, the guy who made this development kit. I was following his tutorial, and they were so out of date. And I'm like, well, why do you not update it? Does it really take that much time to like change the few things that need to be changed, or is there a significant amount of things that need to be changed? Because you have this one version that I don't think's been changed for a while, and you could just update it. Like there was a few things that were in there that were slight changes that you could be like, okay, change the name of this to that, because for some reason he decided to change it. Why? I don't know. I wouldn't have changed it. It didn't seem like it was going to be such a big issue, but maybe it could have been something with his code and how he was doing it, and something like that, something silly. But yeah, it just makes me a bit mad, because then you're like, okay, I want to see some more tutorials, see if someone actually have an updated, completed guide to doing everything on here. And so it's just a mess to find these like links and helpful links to actually guide you through this stuff. First I tried doing assembly, which assembly by itself is already hard. It's not really too hard as some people make it sound, but it's not that easy, because you have to really make a lot of things. Like assembly is so raw, you have to make everything. You gotta make sure you make the loop, the game loop. You gotta make, initialize everything on the CPUs. If you don't, you can screw it up. There's always some kind of like template you kind of have to follow in a sense, where it's like set up the palette, set up the tiles, load these in, the RAM, all that stuff. And it's really too much for me to actually sit down, like currently. I mean, like if I took the time, I can probably learn this stuff. I can probably just keep practicing and memorizing this, but I don't have the time for that. So I'm like, okay, this Sega Genesis development kit makes it easier. I don't have to learn assembly. I can do a language I'm pretty familiar with. Not 100% familiar with, but because I've touched C so much, not C++, C Sharp. C's practically this, it's the lower end one, the lowest level one, I believe. So it's just easier. It's just easy because I feel comfortable in C language and I understand the format of it. And doing GameMaker actually feels very similar, since JavaScript and whatnot. It's kind of all the same, really. But it's just something that bothers me. It's like these people have made something so wonderful to make games on here much easier, but you haven't bothered giving care about telling people how to use it. So you might be the only person who actually knows how to use it, or someone who actually reads through the entire documentation, understanding how to work things out, and actually has a much better knowledge of programming than I do. See, I hate pointers. Pointers get on my nerves. I understand kind of what they do, but I don't understand the purpose completely. I know it just points to a certain part of the RAM or something like that where the variable is. To me, it doesn't make sense, and when you program, I don't understand. It's just so that I don't understand that it's going to have to come to me once I start really learning, taking time to actually learn this stuff. But then there's also another issue where it's like you have to also know how the Sega system works. How like the Genesis works, and that stuff is, to me, it's interesting. I love to look at how that stuff works. Like saying the VDP only has it has 3 planes. It has a sprite plane and the two scrolling background planes where the tiles go. And I think there's also a 4th plane. I don't know if they really consider this a plane, but it's like the window, and somewhere between the sprite and the background planes. And there's like a lot of documentation on it, which you see, that's not the problem. There's not a lot of documentation, but people can read it but not understand what they mean. Like, what the hell's a tile? There's some people who actually understand this stuff, but I would like if they can make some kind of video series or something going in depth on each thing, going, okay, what this means, and go into that's also another problem I have with just tutorials in general. People skip out on a lot of things that I find to be important. Like, what did you just do here? Don't tell me you just typed this thing in here. Tell me why you typed it in there. Tell me why this has to be this way. And if there's another way, how can I do it? that should be something in tutorial. You're not trying. Don't tell. Like, that's why I hate tutorials. It's just if I make a tutorial, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to go into depth with it. At least I'm going to try to, as deep as I can go without making it too complicated. And yeah. Now, Sega Saturn development. It's something it's kind of weird because you have a pretty good amount of Genesis development. Then you have this dip where there's like barely anything for Saturn. At least for me, I don't see it much. And there's a tons of reasons. But then there's Dreamcast, which has a huge spike of the people still developing, and actually a lot of resources and actual tutorials, which I want to try to make something for the Dreamcast. I think it'd probably be much easier than doing it for the Genesis, since the Dreamcast is a bit newer, and Sega's always actually kind of been supporting with the indie scene for the Dreamcast. Now, I personally had never had these consoles as a child. The only console I had is my PS2 that I still have here that's broken. That was my only like nostalgia thing. But these consoles, they just fascinate me. Like, older consoles fascinate me, and that's why I always wanted to be like, I want to know how I can make a game for these things. I'm a developer. I gotta make a game. I want to make a game, at least something. That making that Hello World text bounce around made me happy just to get that working. And I was just like, man, if I can make some kind of breakout game or something stupid and simple, but it would be a good learning experience. Because then from that, I can just make a game full, maybe like a little RPG thing, port one of our games over to one of these consoles. It'd probably be like shit, but it'd be fun. It'd be a fun experience to do. But sadly, I probably won't be able to get to that point now. I'd probably get to that point later in my life, where I actually have the time to really go in depth and start learning this stuff. But who knows how long it's going to take? It depends. Will this next game that we're making be successful? Will another game we're going to make be successful? Will it just be multiple? Will us as a company be successful? Us as a team just succeed with all of our games? Not really like that one-hit wonder, or that one game that just did really well. Like Toby Fox throughout Undertale got him a lot of money, and with that money I would have been like, I'm working on the next game, guys. Let's keep doing this. I would just keep posting and keep updating you guys on things, which I do want to actually do a small update. I want to do a small little update about current situation right now, because things, but still, this footage you're probably seeing. This is actually my collection. I might have passed already, depending on how I'm editing this video. I have like 15 Game Gears. I mean, it's probably not 15 anymore. I've been fixing them. They're all broken except for the one, the first one I showed, the first video I showed with the Game Gear. I'm fixing it for some guys. These guys are awesome. I might look one of the flea markets here. And that's also another thing I really love too. Is just looking at the hardware. Hardware has always been this great thing about retro games. It just fascinates me how much you can pull out of that. And I'm just like, with the Sega Saturn, it kind of died real quick. And development for it wasn't really big as soon as Sega actually got proper libraries and a better way of actually developing, making it easier for developers. But by that time, the Saturn was dead. And I was just like, after looking at this stuff, I was like, damn, how much power we can crank out of that thing. That thing's got 2 video processors. Now, I know there's one for 3D and one for 2D, and you can mix them both, and there's some games that really show, Panzer Dragoon. That game looks awesome. I just also like something about old 3D graphics, just low poly, which, this thing Saturn was unique in a way that it didn't use polygons, it used quads. And these quads were just the 2D sprite images that were just manipulated, and they were bent and distorted into a way to make it look 3D in a sense. Because now with the power of scaling, because the thing is, you have to understand that back in the day, sprite scaling wasn't much of a thing, because it was you needed a really good CPU to really scale sprites. It's a lot of mathematics. to just make the sprite bigger. And that's when the Sega Genesis, I want to say the Sega Genesis is the first console to do scaling, but I think the SNES, well, not the Genesis, but the Sega CD, but it wasn't the first, I think. I think the SNES, when it came out, actually, the SNES has scaling natively. The Genesis does not. However, there's games that kind of made it look like it's scaling. Vector Man is one of those games, and I love Vector Man. Vector Man is one of the most impressive games on the native hardware of the Genesis. And if you have a Genesis and you haven't played Vector Man, what the hell is wrong with you? Just get the emulator, get a good controller, play it on. It's a bit hard, kind of like old games. It's always been hard, but you can find the cheat codes to go back to like levels and stuff. But personally, I can just keep playing that first level over and over again. It is just it's gorgeous to look at for the Genesis. 16-bit game really truly shows it off. And there's just always something with Genesis games. They always like to show off like these ball movements, and I'm like, it's kind of weird, whatever. But I always thought it was kind of cool. These guys, whoever made this, I don't remember the developers who made this, but Blue Sky made it. These guys pushed the limits of the Genesis. They managed to make one of the first boss, kind of like a helicopter thing, scale and like kind of rotate. Rotating was also another thing you didn't see much in the older consoles because it was something that you had to do a lot of mathematics for. But they made it so the helicopter was actually a background object. It was actually the background. And what they did was they kind of manipulated the pixels and then, in a sense, I guess shifted each of the pixels. I don't know what kind of math they had to do for that, but it was just, if you look at it, it's like, wow, that's super, super cool. Then the second level where it's like kind of like a boss fight or something, where there's this like guy who's just like grabbing onto this train track, and everything's just wow. It's really, that level sucks, but it's just impressive to look at. It's really pretty. Everything looks super like 3D, and the guy's like coming at you, grabbing. God, you can tell I'm just passionate about this stuff. But yeah, the Sega CD comes out. I'm gonna say Sega CD was one of the best expansions for the Genesis, because the fact that they're kind of like I think they're the first to put out the CD thing. I don't know. There's also the Turbo Graphics and all that stuff. I don't think shit about those. It wasn't ever popular here. In Japan, yeah, but all they had is shoot 'em ups, and that's my problem with Japanese games. Most of them are shoot 'em ups. Actually, I have 2 imports here. I took a guess that they were going to be both shoot 'em ups. Only one of them was, but the other one was some some strategy game. I can't play it at all because it's all in Japanese. So, but yeah, the Sega CD quality audio, sprite scaling and rotation, pretty much just best thing the 16-bit era got. And the idea of it was supposed to be like, okay, let's port some of our Genesis games into this to make them look better, like Sonic CD have audio like quality, like audio CD quality audio, which is like one of the best. Mostly because the CD can hold and it can be like uncompressed, a little bit more less compressed than you can for normal. The processor was only like just making sounds through that, which still I really like that, and you can actually mixes both of them in. So I had this weird setup going on with my 32X as well and CD. It is just crazy. I'd probably make a video on that on my personal channel, Major League Unboxing. But yeah, 32X. As much as I really like the 32X, and a lot of people don't, I always thought it was fascinating just the fact that they just managed to say, hey, we're gonna plop this thing on, and it's gonna produce on your Genesis, and it's gonna produce 3D graphics. It's pretty much, once you get like the CD and the 32X, you practically have a Sega Saturn, a very watered down Sega Saturn, because the processors in the 32X are the same ones in the Saturn. So that's why it was also hard to program for. And then it also failed because they rushed it, and it was just not that. Nobody wanted it. Nobody really cared. They just wanted a new console, and I can understand that. But right now, that was a thing of the past. But right now, I have it. It's nice. I love it. I just like having it. It's part of the collection. It's part of the collection. It's fascinating technology. And it just makes me a little sad that it couldn't do well. So, but yeah, I think I rambled too much about just how much I love these consoles rather than the development part. But I mean, I think I already had enough to say about the fact that development on this thing, these consoles it's just hard to do it. It's really hard. Unless you were in the time and in the industry at the time. Sadly, I can't. I'm probably going to take my sweet time to work on more important stuff like our actual games than learn this stuff. This is just some topic I thought it would be nice to talk about since nobody really talks about it. And yeah, I think that's the end of this. So now the update. So we're really kind of getting close to finishing the demo of our game. Gabe, G-Bone, whatever. He's still working on music. He's got to work on the music and sound. That one track that you heard in the teaser. You might have heard in the teaser we have. If you haven't seen the teaser, you can watch it. Just kind of nothing really special. Just a little teaser on what we got. Just showing you some stuff. The music there, he made that, and he was like, I can't believe I made this. This thing sounds awesome. I'm like, yeah, it really does. He made another track yesterday. It was good. I would say definitely better than anything else he's made, but it's definitely not that one, not the first track. It's still good though. I think it would be nice for like more of it's like battle music. That's what we're trying to do. Trying to make cool battle music. But yeah, Will's still doing art. This is actually working on a cutscene part that I still have to implement. Once that's done, I think that's the end of the demo. Just do a little fix-up, see if anything else needs to be changed. And yeah, I don't have an estimated date when we're going to actually release it, but yeah. You might also see there's going to be a lack of videos too, because we still try and come up with a schedule for doing this kind of stuff, and we kind of have a schedule, but right now it's just kind of in the air. Nobody really follows it. Right, like my dev talks are kind of going to be weekly, so I don't tire myself out, and it's also kind of hard to do social media, and do game design as well. And we recently bought GTA 5 on PC, so we've been playing that too after work. And yeah, it's been like this. So like the first week that we started blowing up the social media, go on Twitter, go on YouTube, start posting these videos, that's always kind of going to happen, where we just kind of come back to this and start shoving things out. I mean, I think this is the only one we're actually really kind of pushing out. We want to try doing daily videos, but it's kind of hard to do them when we don't have anything to make a video on. There's always dev talks, so that's why I do it. So anyway, thanks for listening, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this one. I don't know, to me, I think every single one of them that comes out just gets better and better and better. So, practice makes perfect. And I'll see you guys talk to you guys next week.